Okay, so I've gathered 10 of Ben 10's best and most powerful aliens of all time, and compiled them into the most overpowered Omnitrix to ever exist. 10 aliens that would not only best anyone in the series, but also benefit Ben in almost any situation, whether that be an underwater fight against a Kraken, or an interdimensional battle against a hybrid race. These 10 aliens can and will do it all. But before we can jump right into each of them, let's first explain the ground rules that we have to follow. Now first up, this will only be aliens seen in the original series, Classic, Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and Omniverse, as the reboot itself isn't all that great or watched by many of the OG fans. Now second, each of these will be handpicked based on their individual usefulness to Ben and how well they cover each of these 20 most needed traits that I believe the most overpowered Omnitrix must have. Now finally, we will not be using any ultimate alien form at all, as some aliens never actually got one and it wouldn't really be fair to add them to a watch of only 10 aliens. But now of course, with all that said, let's explain the traits that we need to cover with our 10 aliens. They are fire, water, underwater breathing, ice, speed, strength, electricity, flight, durability, invisibility, tech control, intelligence, big size, small size, sound abilities, cloning, plant manipulation, time abilities, magnetism, and intangibility. 20 traits that again, I consider the most needed for the best Omnitrix in the universe to become the most overpowered and unstoppable of all time. So now with that covered, let's get on to the best part of the video, the selecting of our 10 aliens. Now immediately in our watch, we need Atomix, one of the most overpowered aliens of all time, and someone who can create and control nuclear energy with just his hands. He can also fly around if ever needed and kick someone so hard that they fly across an entire planet. But now his strength isn't just his only impressive quality, as he's also one of the most durable aliens that we've ever seen in the entire Ben 10 show, with his hard exterior protecting him from most physical attacks. However, above all of this, and the main reason I just have to have him in my Omnitrix watch, is his ability known as Fusion Cuisine, which is basically an ability that creates an orb of pure nuclear energy that over time can even become the size of the sun itself, which basically means that with enough time, he can destroy absolutely anything in his path. Like, does it get any cooler than that? I just don't think so. Now the next addition to our watch, and one that covers 3 of our most needed traits, is Echo. For he's not only a small sized alien with insanely powerful sound abilities, but also potentially one of Ben's most busted aliens of all time, if he ever used it the right way. For his ability to clone was shown in Alien Force to also allow Ben to transform these clones back into human form and then into other aliens. Basically meaning that with Echo alone, Ben can become all of his aliens at the same time, or simply just use Echo to become 10 Atomix at once, which let me tell you would definitely get the job done. Now sure, it has been shown that Ben's emotions can become problematic while separated into many forms. However, I believe with enough practice and work, this ability could potentially change the outcome of any fight at any time. Which is why, for these many reasons, I will be choosing Echo over the likes of Ditto or Ben Wolf. The potential with him is just way higher than any of them. But now moving on, in our watch, next we're going to need someone strong, which is honestly the hardest category to choose for, as there's actually a lot of physically strong aliens seen across the entire show, and any of them could be the best given the current situation. For you see, we have the likes of Humongosaur, Four Arms, Wrath, Frankenstrike, Shocksquatch, and even Diamond Head himself, who many may not consider all that strong, but I think he could definitely hold his own if given the opportunity. Now immediately between Humongosaur and Four Arms, Humongosaur is generally considered the strongest, but not just from the fans but by Ben himself, with him even switching to Humongosaur when Four Arms wasn't strong enough to remove the sword from the stone back in Alien Force. However, between Humongosaur and Wrath is generally more agile, with his only issue really being his temperamental mood swings. And then Frankenstrike also offers electricity with his insane strength, but so does Shocksquatch. And as for Diamond Head himself, well, he's stronger than most and does offer range attacks. However, among these many other strong aliens, I'm gonna have to skip over him just for now. But again, he may be suited to a different trait later down the line. So now that just leaves us with these 5 aliens. And while many would instantly go with Humongosaur simply based on him being the strongest of the bunch, I'm gonna actually take Frankenstrike, as he's physically powerful and durable, while also offering a little bit more potential with the addition of the electricity ability, something that does also help with one of our traits that is on our list. But now with that said, next we're going to need some speed, another trait that actually has quite a few options to choose from. For see, in this category we have Fast Track, XLR8, and Jetray, 3 of the show's fastest aliens to ever exist. However, which of them is truly the fastest, and the most deserving of our speed slot in our watch? Well, Fast Track and XLR8 are both quite strong and durable, possessing speeds faster than even speeding missiles. However, they both share the same weakness to slippery and wet surfaces, making them less ideal for those situations. Whereas Jetray on the other hand is considered faster than both of them, while also possessing the ability to fly at high speeds and breathe underwater, which of course again covers 3 of our traits on our list perfectly, meaning we'll of course have to be taking him and adding him to our watch. But now for reference, however, the other options for the flying and water categories would have been Big Chill, Amphibian, Ripjaws, Water Hazard, Stinkfly, Ghost Freak, Astrodactyl, and Chromastone. All amazing picks, but just not as versatile or as useful as Jetray in my opinion. But now up next, we're going to need someone cold as ice, with Big Chill and Arctiguana being our two main options. Now Arctiguana, despite only being in the show for about 20 minutes of screen time, actually has quite amazing feats of his very own. Because this guy not only froze the entire lake in seconds, stopping future mutation Filgax, but also froze lava itself in Omniverse. Again, in just mere seconds. Meaning the guy's pretty cool. However, we can't write off Big Chill just yet, as this guy's not only got ice in his veins, but is easily one of Ben's most versatile and strongest aliens of all time. Because while he can of course use ice-related powers like Arctiguana, he can also fly, become intangible, and invisible. Meaning he covers multiple traits on his own, while also adding insane power to an already insanely overpowered watch. But which of them is truly the best for the watch? Well, while I'm a sucker for any scene involving Arctiguana, I just have to go with Big Chill for this one. He's just far too versatile and useful to pass up as one of our 10 picks. But now with ice of course covered, next we're going to need some heat, which of course brings us to the fire types. Heatblast, Swampfire, and I guess NRG. Now right off the bat, NRG is easily the strongest overall, given that he basically just emits pure red radioactive energy all day, every day, with him even being able to use this energy in his attacks through the gaps in his helmet. He's also immune to ice, poison, and radiation, and can even fly around when outside of his suit of highly durable armor. He also becomes even stronger when outside of that suit, however while outside of that suit he also becomes a risk to anyone else around, due to him basically being an entity of pure radiation. But now as for Heatblast and Swampfire, well they're both insanely strong in their own right. However, Heatblast is generally considered that little bit stronger in terms of raw firepower. But in my opinion, Swampfire is just that little bit better and more useful, as his ability to generate and control plant life along with his fire-based attacks is second to none. He's also just insanely durable, versatile, and unstoppable in most situations, literally being able to regenerate his own body at will. Like the guy even pulled himself out of the null void for God's sake. It doesn't get any more insane than that. So yeah, when it comes to the heat pick on our list, I'm just gonna have to go with Swampfire over the other two. He's just that little bit better and more useful in my opinion. But now with our watch being absolutely full to the brim of absolute powerhouses, we're of course gonna need some intelligence just to add to the mix, with Grey Matter and Brainstorm being our two options. Now Brainstorm is easily the stronger of the two, possessing super intelligence just like Grey Matter, along with electrokinesis and telekinesis, which altogether allows him to solve complex problems, generate and manipulate electricity from his brain, and even control technology if ever needed. However, among the two, Grey Matter and the Galvan aliens themselves have been confirmed to be the smarter of the two species, meaning that in terms of straight up intelligence, Grey Matter fits our needs a little bit better, as he does also help cover that small size category as well. So yeah, I'm going to take Grey Matter for this one, but again, Brainstorm is not a bad shout either way. But now speaking of sizes, next we have the big size, with Waybig and Humongousaur being our two main options. However, if we're really being honest, there's only one real option for this category, and that's Waybig, Ben's go-to option to end any situation and any opponent. Because the guy's over 100 feet tall, insanely strong and durable, and even categorized as a cosmic ending threat. And if that wasn't already enough, he can even generate shockwaves with his punches, run insanely fast, generate large energy blasts with just his arms, and even survive outer space itself. Like, do I need to say anything else about why he's the big option on our list? No? Okay, so moving on, next we need someone who can manipulate tech and control magnetism. And while there are so many better options for both of these categories, I'm limited on the space in my watch, which means I'm going to have to take Lodestar, simply because he can do both to a minor degree. However, for reference, Upgrade, Nanomech, and Jury Rig would have been far better options for tech control overall, and I would have personally preferred to have any of them if possible, but again, this is just a watch of the 10 best aliens in the entire Ben 10 show, so we can't of course do that based on the limited space. But now Lodestar himself is still an insanely strong pick for our watch, as he can not only manipulate metal and technology, but also rip apart entire metal objects and machines, create entire force fields around himself and others, and even levitate or fly when needed. And what's more, if he ever does manage to get destroyed or damaged, he can also regenerate himself completely in just a matter of seconds. So yeah, although some of the other aliens may have been better and more useful in some of these areas, Lodestar is just far too good to pass up in my opinion. But now for the final entry into our overpowered Omnitrix, it's just gotta be Alien X, the god tier alien who can do just about anything he wants. And I mean absolutely anything. You see, he's a multi-dimensional, reality warping, universal destroying and remaking alien, limited only by convincing the personalities inside to do what you want. You see, while he is capable of doing everything and anything, all three personalities must agree to do it. If even one disagrees and does not want to, well then he'll just stand around doing absolutely niche. However, because of that godlike potential that he does have, he's easily got to be added to our watch. But But now with that, that does it for the most overpowered Omnitrix to ever exist. Tell me down below if you agree with my picks and consider any of them good or bad, as I am really curious to see what your opinions are about it. And while you're at it, tell me what 10 aliens you would put in your Omnitrix if you had one at your disposal. And if you could, please consider liking the video down below and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, as it really helps us out a lot and I would really appreciate it. But for now, and with all of that said, just have a nice day or night wherever you are, and peace.